questions that we had here was based off of ADP. Who are the worst RB values? There were some great names that were being tossed around there, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of my guys before I give it over to you, Johnny, for a few of yours.
Right here.
Picked 4 names that really stood out to me here. I got Aaron Jones at RB9. He's at 205 in the second round. I just feel like we've talked about this at length. Aaron Jones stepping into regression most likely, especially in the touchdown category. But then you talk about this team wanting to switch to a 1-2 punch. That's why they got A.J. Dillon. He is a Derrick Henry physical type, will probably take some of those touchdowns, I would imagine. Then you've got Austin Eckler at RB12 at the 209 spot, Johnny. I can't trust that Eckler is going to be some sort of workhorse, and I think we've heard from Anthony Lynn basically saying there's other backs on this squad that we can trust to kind of help carry the load. Eckler's going to be great, I think, as far as a PPR guy, but as RB12, I just don't know if I can trust him to be my RB1 over the length of a season. And then a couple of rookies, Jonathan Taylor. We talked about these guys on Mock Draft Monday. Jonathan Taylor sitting at RB24 in the 5th, and DeAndre Swift is sitting at RB27 in the 6th. These systems tend to make me think it's going to be a full-blown RBBC, especially with the COVID offseason, with the way rookies aren't getting the usual reps that they would be getting. You're going to look at a system that you have established guys there, not saying they're great, but they are established veterans that will be carrying the load at least for the beginning of the season, and you really want to grab a guy to be your RB2 that is in a full-blown committee. I just don't love the value here on these ADPs, and so these were kind of the group of guys that I went with.
I didn't grab a bunch of them. I just did one. I will say that I agree with you with the Jonathan Taylor. My opinion on Jonathan Taylor is not that and I want Whisper Nation to know this because people will see he is a very talented running back. I'm not trying to say that he is the most talented pure running back that came out of this draft, and he is very close to the style of Saquon and Zeke. Don't be surprised if in a couple of years he is going top 10, top 5 because he is that talented. And Indy's offensive line is number 1 ranked. So there, people are probably like, well, then why would you say he's too high? And the reason is that is going to be a 3-headed monster. And I started to think back a little bit more too of 2 years ago. Indy was a very, very much a headache, and they were a 3-headed monster between Mack, Wilkins, and Hines. I think that's what they want to do there. I think more teams are kind of seeing the benefit in employing a 3-down kind of style for certain systems, I'll say. And
Frank Reich comes from Philly, and that style has always been Doug Peterson's style, is to run multiple guys that do different have different tools and traits within that offense.
Yep, exactly. And listen, I'm not saying that JT won't have games because he will have games. He'll have games where he explodes. I'm just not sure if you're going to be able to predict them unless there's an injury to somebody. But I will say that if his draft price can fall a little bit, and something were to happen to Marlon Mack or Nyheim Hines, we could see a similar situation that Nick Chubb saw a few years ago, where all of a sudden he was an RB1 that won you your league most likely because of a trade and an injury that happened or whatever. And so there is that, but the difference is you're spending a 4th rounder currently on Jonathan Taylor versus Nick Chubb back then was a 9th or 10th rounder. So much different draft capital, but I will counter with what you're saying with DeAndre Swift. I will say that I think his where you have to take him in the 7th round is okay because I do think that eventually.
Well, they got him in the 6th when I was looking at 4 for 4.
Oh, he's now in the 6th now?
Yeah, that's the thing is I think he keeps creeping up, and he's going to eventually be where Jonathan Taylor is at the very back end of the RB2 situation. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I can trust him as a pure RB2 yet until we hear Kerryon Johnson's been benched or Kerryon Johnson's been hurt. But who stuck out to you as far as a worst value as at the running back position?
Well, I mean, that was just that I was honestly looking. I mean, I wanted to speak to someone that we hadn't spoken on in a while or not as much. And like you said, Aaron Jones, you hit it. Eckler, I would agree with that as well. So I'm really good with those ones.
Yeah, I threw in Dalvin Cook to the mix. I mean, it's sort of hard because I know the guy had quite the season last year, but I am somebody who gets so worried about injury. And when it comes to a running back that you're taking at that value, a guy who's missed 19 games in 3 seasons, when we don't even know how many games anybody is going to get this season because of COVID, that has me a little bit shaky. And then the guy's playing in a holdout. And I mean, I watched Johnny suffer through Melvin Gordon holdout, taking a huge audacious risk thinking it'd pan out, and just that pain and agony. And while I trust we've learned plenty from the Melvin Gordon holdout situation that Dalvin Cook isn't looking to repeat, it just makes me way nervous to think that he's going to be the 5th running back off the board. Don't want none of that.
Yeah, it's craziness, right? Le'Veon Bell held out and missed his opportunity at bigger money with Pittsburgh and with the Jets or with any other team. He then, Melvin Gordon watches that and sees the like the stupidity of it, and still holds out last year. And then, when you talk about Dalvin Cook, Johnny, you very astutely pointed this out. There's no leverage for Dalvin Cook to do this deal or to hold out. But yet, if he still does, would you be that surprised? Because we've watched back-to-back years of guys just kind of being idiotic and doing this just based off, and I don't want to discredit players having their feelings hurt. Like, players should do what's best for them. Dalvin Cook should do what's best for Dalvin Cook in his mind. But I will just say, like, if you're watching these guys do that. But yeah, I loved what Chelsea said here, adding risk to the fact that he's already an injury risk, and we have the COVID risk. Now you're going to add the holdout. Yeah, and we talked about this when the holdout was talking. If he was still holding out and you were going to draft and he's still within the top 5, it's just a little too risky for us. And he's still sitting here at the number 5 in the first round. I thought that was a great take there, Chelsea.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Whisperers podcast. You can hear more from John and Travis on Google Play, SoundCloud, and iTunes. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at TF Whisperers.